The crimson dust of Zirian 7 swirled around Captain Kai Thorne's boots as he crested the rocky outcrop, his scanner beeping insistently. 20 years of searching had carved lines around his steel-gray eyes, but they still held the same desperate hope that had driven him to join the Intergalactic Search Corps. "Another dead end," muttered Lieutenant Jackson Vale, his communications officer, wiping sweat from his brow. The binary suns of Zirian 7 beat down mercilessly on their environmental suits. Kai ignored him, focused on the anomalous readings. Energy signatures unlike anything in the database pulsed from beyond the canyon ahead. His heart hammered, not from exertion, but from a familiar mixture of hope and dread that had become his constant companion. Mira. Even after 2 decades, her name still echoed in his mind like a prayer. The memory struck him with brutal clarity, 8-year-old Kai clutching 3-year-old Mira's tiny hand as alarms shrieked through the evacuation ship. The Nethys raiders had come without warning, their bioships tearing through the colony's defenses like tissue paper. In the chaos, someone had torn Mira from his grasp, a woman screaming about getting the children to the escape pods. He had searched every pod, every manifest, every survivor list. Mira Thorne was listed as missing, presumed deceased. The official report claimed her pod had been destroyed by Nethys fire. But they never found wreckage. Never found a body. Never found her. "Sir." Jackson's voice cut through the memory, "The readings are getting stronger." Kai blinked, refocusing on the present. His scanner was practically humming now, detecting not just energy, but life. Complex. Organized. Intentional. Radio command, Kai ordered, his pulse quickening. "Tell them we found something." They descended into the canyon, following a path that seemed almost too perfect, too deliberate. The walls were carved with symbols, not Zirian native markings, but something else. Something that made Kai's enhanced intuition prickle with recognition. The settlement revealed itself gradually. Structures that seemed grown rather than built, their surfaces shifting between metallic gleam and organic curves. Bioluminescent plants provided gentle lighting, and the air itself shimmered with barely visible energy. "By the void," Jackson whispered. "What is this place?" Figures emerged from the structures. Humanoid, but wrong, somehow. Their movements too fluid. Their features too perfect. Hybrids. Kai realized it instantly. Human-alien crossbreeds. Supposedly impossible, according to Galactic Science Division reports. But it was the figure approaching them that made Kai's world tilt on its axis. She moved with liquid grace, her skin holding a faint luminescence that caught the alien light. Her hair was darker than space itself, shot through with silver strands that pulsed with their own rhythm. When she raised her head, Kai saw eyes that glowed with soft amber fire, eyes that were hauntingly, impossibly familiar. The shape of her face. The curve of her lips. The way she tilted her head when curious. "No, it can't be." She spoke. Her voice a melody that mixed human intonation with something musical and alien. "Travelers from the void ships. You seek what among the balanced?" Kai's scanner fell from nerveless fingers. The device clattered on the stone, its readout still scrolling genetic markers that his mind refused to process. 20 years of searching. 20 years of hope and heartbreak. 20 years of following every lead, every whisper, every impossible dream. And here she stood. Transformed. Enhanced. Alive. But undeniably, impossibly. Mira. The name escaped his lips like a prayer answered by a god he'd stopped believing in. The glowing eyes widened, and for just a moment, the alien grace faltered. Something flickered across her face, recognition, confusion, pain. When she spoke again, her voice carried a tremor of uncertainty. "I know this sound. This name word." She pressed a hand to her temple, her luminous skin flickering. "From the before time. From the dreams that taste of salt water and fear." Kai stepped forward, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might burst. It's me, Mira. It's Kai. Your brother. The DNA scanner's results materialized in holographic display between them, twin helixes spinning lazily in the alien twilight. Kai stared at the readout, his hands trembling as the numbers confirmed what his heart already knew. 99.7% genetic siblings, Vera, she said, her voice softer now. That is what they call me. Vera. Veronique. She studied the display with those luminous amber eyes, her expression cycling through confusion, wonder, and something deeper. Pain, perhaps. Or recognition, fighting against years of careful conditioning. Kai, she repeated, the name rolling off her tongue with increasing familiarity. Brother. Bond. Yes. I remember, fragments. A boy with storm-colored eyes who sang to chase away night terrors. Lieutenant Jackson had wisely retreated to give them space. Kai barely noticed. The world had narrowed to this impossible moment. This woman who was his sister, but so much more than human now. You sang too, Kai whispered, stepping closer. Lullabies our mother taught you. Even at 3, you had the most beautiful voice. Her hand rose unconsciously to her throat, where Kai could now see faint marks. Not scars, but deliberate modifications. Patterns that pulsed with soft light, synchronized with her heartbeat. The Zephyrians found me, she said, her voice carrying both gratitude and sorrow. My pod, it was damaged, but not destroyed. I was dying when they pulled me from the wreckage. They saved me. She gestured to herself, to the subtle alien beauty that enhanced every human feature. Salvation came with transformation. Kai reached out instinctively, then stopped himself when she tensed. What did they do to you? They gave me life, Vera replied. But her tone suggested the answer was more complex than those simple words. Enhanced my genetics. Awakened dormant potentials. Gifted me with abilities your kind cannot imagine. She placed her palm against a withered plant nearby. Soft light pulsed from her fingers, and the plant straightened, its leaves unfurling in vibrant health. Incredible, Kai breathed. But his scientific wonder was overshadowed by grief. But why didn't they return you? Why didn't they let anyone know you survived? Vera's luminous eyes darkened. Because I was not merely saved. I was chosen. The Zephyrians are dying, Kai. Their species grows weaker with each generation. Their numbers dwindle. They needed a bridge between worlds. Someone who could understand both human emotion and Zephyrian wisdom. She gestured to the hybrid settlement around them. These are my people now. Children of 2 worlds who need guidance. Protection. Hope. I am their Veronique. Their heart keeper. Their voice in the cosmic balance. Kai felt his world tilting again. This wasn't just about finding his sister anymore. She hadn't just survived. She'd become something transcendent. But you're still my sister, he said desperately. Under all the enhancements, all the responsibility, you're still Mira. The little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. Something flickered across her face, vulnerability, longing. For a moment, the alien grace dropped away, and he saw his sister clearly. The scared child who'd been torn from everything she knew. I dream of storms, she admitted softly. Of strong arms holding me while the sky tears itself apart. Of a voice promising that dawn always comes. Her eyes met his. And they were wet with tears that sparkled like liquid starlight. I remember you, Kai. Not everything. But enough. The distance between them seemed to collapse and expand simultaneously. 20 years of separation. Of different worlds. Of transformation beyond recognition. Yet the bond remained. Fragile, but unbroken. Come home with me, Kai whispered. We can figure this out together. You don't have to carry this burden alone. Vera's expression grew pained. This is my home now. These people need me. And she hesitated, then continued with heartbreaking honesty, I don't know if I can survive in your world anymore. The enhancements, the quantum sensitivity, human space is too harsh. Too discordant. It would be like trying to breathe underwater. Kai felt his heart breaking all over again. He'd found her, but she might still be lost to him. The sister he'd searched for was here, but she belonged to something larger than their shared past. Then I'll stay, he said impulsively. I'll resign from the Corps. Help you here. No. Her voice carried sudden authority. The tone of someone accustomed to making decisions that affected entire communities. Your path lies among the stars, brother. You've dedicated your life to finding the lost. That calling doesn't end with me. The sun was setting, casting the settlement in ethereal light. In that glow, Vera looked more alien than ever. And heartbreakingly beautiful. But maybe, she added, her voice soft with possibility, we can find a way to bridge our worlds. To heal the gap that trauma tore between us. She extended her hand. And after a moment's hesitation, Kai took it. Her skin was warm. Electric. Thrumming with alien energy. But beneath all the enhancements, he felt something achingly familiar. His sister's hand. Grown strong, but still capable of perfect trust. Show me, he said. Show me who you've become. 3 days had passed since Captain Kai Thorne arrived in the settlement hidden within the canyons of Zirion 7. In that time, his mind had reeled from the immensity of what he had found, not just his sister, Mira, but a woman transformed into Vera, the Veronake of the Zephyrian human hybrids. She was both miracle and myth now, a bridge between two species, her existence an enigma that defied galactic understanding. Kai had been given a room within the central spire, a living structure that responded to his circadian rhythms and adjusted the luminescence of its walls to ease him into rest and wake cycles. The walls pulsed with ambient warmth, and the air carried a faint hum of quantum energy, like a subtle whisper at the edge of perception. He hadn't slept well, not from discomfort, but from the overwhelming presence of her, Vera, in every breath he took. He rose early, as he always had in the Corps, and stepped onto the high balcony overlooking the settlement. Below, the hybrids moved with coordinated purpose. Some were clearly more human in appearance, others bore the graceful, bioluminescent features of the Zephyrians. Vera had explained that the success rate of integration depended on a delicate balance of genetic sequencing, emotional resilience, and quantum harmony. You're awake early, came her voice, soft, melodic, and always tinged with that strange reverberation. Kai turned to find her standing barefoot at the edge of the balcony. A long robe of translucent fabric clung to her, shimmering with the hues of sunrise. Her presence pulled the breath from his lungs. Habit, he said simply. She walked closer, her movements silent, more like flowing water than footsteps. Come, she said, gesturing toward a spiraling bridge of woven biosteel that led down to the crystalline gardens. As they walked, Vera explained the subtle architecture of the settlement. Everything was grown, not built, using a combination of Zephyrian biotech and human engineering principles adapted from early terraforming programs. Each structure is tuned to the emotional and biological patterns of its inhabitants, she said. This way, no one is ever truly alone, even in solitude. Kai studied her profile as she spoke. Even in daylight, her skin glowed faintly, and her hair seemed to shift in texture and color as if resonating with the environment. She was mesmerizing, his sister, yes, but also something more. Does it ever feel like too much? He asked suddenly. All this responsibility. All these lives depending on you. She stopped beside a cluster of crystalline trees. Their branches sang in the wind, a soft, harmonic sound that resonated through the air. Sometimes, she admitted. Especially in the silence. That's when the voices return. The ones from before. Kai swallowed. From when you were just, Mira. She nodded slowly. Those memories are like artifacts now. Buried under layers of enhancement, duty, and transformation. But they surface. Especially around you. Kai reached out and gently touched her arm. Her skin was warmer than his, and beneath the surface he could feel a pulsing rhythm, like two hearts beating in tandem. I still see her, he said. The little girl who used to hum lullabies in her sleep. She looked up, and her amber eyes shimmered. And I still hear your voice, Kai. In the moments between waking and sleep. In the stillness of the void. They stood in silence, wrapped in a connection that defied time and transformation. When they returned to the central spire, Vera led him to a circular chamber where the senior hybrid council convened. A mix of appearances, some more human, others nearly Zephyrian, watched him with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. This is Captain Kai Thorne, Vera said, her tone commanding but warm. He is my brother by blood, but he is also here as an observer. A bridge, like me, but from the other side. One of the elders, a tall hybrid named Zelver, stood. His eyes held no pupils, only shifting hues of violet. Blood binds, he said. But can it trust? Kai met his gaze. I don't expect your trust. Not yet. But I'm here to understand. To learn. And to help, if I can. Zelver studied him for a moment longer, then sat without comment. Later, as Kai and Vera walked along one of the outer walkways, he asked, They don't trust me. Not yet, she said, but they will. In time. You've built something incredible here, he said, but I can't help wondering, what happens if the outside world finds you? The Galactic Council doesn't exactly support unauthorized hybrid colonies. That's why we must remain hidden, for now. But the day is coming when we'll have to step into the light. And when that day comes, we'll need voices like yours. Voices that understand both sides. Kai hesitated. Vera, what happens to you if they find out? The Council has rules. Enhancement limits. Hybrid ethics codes. They might try to, she stopped him with a raised hand. They will try to control me. Or worse. That's why I have to be more than just a survivor. I have to be a leader. A symbol. I just want you to be safe, he said, frustration tightening in his chest. She smiled, but it was a sad smile. Safe is a luxury for those who haven't been reshaped by fire. That night, as Kai lay in his living quarters, his mind raced. He had found his sister. But the girl he remembered was gone. In her place stood a woman forged by alien science, responsibility, and cosmic vision. She was still his family. Still the girl who used to hum in the dark. But she was also something else. Something more. And he didn't know if that meant she was lost to him forever, or if it meant they were only now beginning to understand who they truly were. Dawn broke with an unnatural quiet. The crystalline trees in the garden shimmered with dew that refracted the first pale rays of Zirian 7's twin suns. Captain Kai Thorne stood alone at the balcony, his thoughts lingering on every word Vera had shared. She was becoming less of a mystery and more of a paradox, both his sister and something alien, someone powerful and needed by a people on the brink of extinction. But serenity is rarely a lasting gift. It began as a flicker across the horizon, a glimmer of black against a rising sun. Then came the scream of atmospheric entry, the air warping with the burn of unauthorized descent. Kai's reflexes kicked in before alarms could blare. Incoming craft, he snapped into the settlement comms. Unauthorized, high speed, 12 clicks northeast. Probable hostiles. Vera was already at the command dais, her robe discarded for a bioweave command suit that seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. Her skin glowed with a fierce light that made her look like a goddess born of stars. Nethys Raiders, she said flatly, scanning the projections with glowing eyes. 15 vessels. Estimated 300 combatants. They're here for our energy lattice. How did they find you? Kai asked, moving to her side. Quantum signatures from the spire have grown stronger. We've been pushing the lattice further into quantum resonance. Too far, too fast. Kai cursed under his breath. Then we need a plan, defensive zones, fallback points, aerial cover. We already have formations, Vera said, gesturing. I trained them myself. But they've never faced this scale of attack. Then you need me, Kai said, stepping up. I've fought Nethys before. Let me command the outer perimeter. Vera hesitated. If you fall. If we fall together. Her eyes softened, but only for a moment. She touched his arm, and the brief contact sent a hum of energy up his shoulder. Be safe, Kai. Moments later, alarms roared through the settlement. Hybrids snapped to action, children of two worlds carrying weapons that hummed with Zephyrian biotech and human alloy. Kai took command of a squad near the canyon ridge, where the Nethys ships would make landfall. When the first wave hit, it was chaos. Black-armored Nethys soldiers dropped in pods of 8, landing with shockwaves that tore trenches into the crystalline terrain. They moved like insects, fast, precise, brutal. Kai barked orders, directing hybrid defenders into flanking formations, firing coordinated blasts of harmonized plasma. The air burned with ozone and screaming. Through it all, Vera's voice rang over the tactical channels, a calm, unshakable presence. Focus on energy nodes. Channel your breath through the lattice. Strike not with anger, but harmony. Her words did something no battle cry ever could. They unified. Kai watched fighters who had never seen live combat move with grace that rivaled elite squads. Still, it wasn't enough. The Nethys brought disruptors, dark energy weapons that short-circuited quantum harmonics. The eastern node faltered, and the outer walls began to crack. We're losing the eastern barrier, Kai shouted. I'm rerouting lattice energy, Vera responded. But her voice was strained. Kai knew what that meant. She was overextending, burning her reserves to stabilize defenses. He activated his wrist beacon. Jackson, get my ship online. Yes, sir. Weapon systems prepped. Shields ready. Kai sprinted from the ridge, dodging fire and shrapnel, until he reached his compact command vessel, the Valkyrie. Within minutes, he was airborne, plasma cannons roaring to life. Targeting Nethys command cruiser, he barked. Bringing hell. He weaved between enemy vessels, launching precision strikes that lit up the sky. His shields flared with every hit, but the Valkyrie held. Below, he watched the hybrids rally, their formation shifting with renewed coordination. He didn't need to ask to know Vera was behind it. Then he saw her. On the battlefield. Alone. Her skin shimmered with golden light, hair streaming behind her like starlight. Both hands extended, channeling pure quantum force into the ground. Energy arced outward in radial waves, disrupting Nethys formation. She collapsed to one knee. Vera, Kai shouted. He slammed the Valkyrie into hover mode, activated auto turrets, and dropped into the chaos. He reached her seconds before a disruptor beam sliced past. Scooping her into his arms, he ducked behind shattered stone. You're burning out, he growled. I had to stop the breach, she gasped. They were inside the perimeter. Not without you, they're not. Rest. Let me finish this. She touched his chest weakly. You're bleeding. Kai looked down to see scorched flesh beneath cracked armor. He hadn't even noticed. It's fine, he muttered. Stay with me. Just stay awake. But she was already fading. He activated a distress beacon. Hybrid medics surged to their location and pulled her away. Kai turned, eyes blazing, and grabbed a fallen rifle. He stalked back onto the battlefield. And something inside him snapped. He fought not as a captain, but as a brother who had nearly lost his sister twice in one life. He didn't remember every moment of the battle that followed, only that it ended in silence, and that the Nethys flagship burned in the sky above them. The aftermath of battle always carried a strange, sacred quiet. The air still shimmered with heat from plasma strikes, and the crystalline ground of Zirion 7's canyon ridge was littered with twisted remnants of Nethys armor, fractured weapons, and scorched dust. Hybrid defenders moved silently through the ruins, tending to the wounded, gathering their fallen, and sealing quantum breaches left in the wake of the disruptors. Kai Thorne sat beside Vera's medical pod in the central chamber of the spire. The pod pulsed with steady bioluminescent rhythms, monitoring her vitals and regulating the quantum fields that kept her delicate enhancements from collapsing inward under strain. She hadn't woken in 17 hours. Kai hadn't left her side. He'd torn off his armor hours ago, his body aching with blunt trauma and deep plasma burns. But the only thing he felt was the hollow ache behind his ribs, the helplessness of watching someone you love drift further from consciousness with each passing second. "She stabilized an hour ago," came a voice from behind. Kai turned to find Zelver, the hybrid elder who had once doubted him, standing in the doorway. "Her lattice output has normalized. The burn in her neural harmonics is still high, but her mind is holding." Kai gave a tight nod. "That's something, at least." Zelver approached, his long robe dragging softly across the smooth floor. "You saved her. And us. I didn't do it alone. She fought harder than anyone. Nearly killed herself to protect this place." "She always does," Zelver said quietly. "She carries the burden as if it belongs solely to her." Kai looked at the sleeping figure in the pod. "Maybe it does. But she shouldn't have to." There was silence between them, the kind that carried understanding. "She spoke of you often, before we truly knew what you meant to her," Zelver said. "She would sing your lullabies to herself. In the quiet, when the lattice hummed low. She called them fragments of the before light." Kai's throat tightened. He'd buried those memories so deep he thought they'd fossilized. "When she wakes," he said, voice thick, "tell her I'm not leaving. Not again." When Vera did wake, it was with a shuddering intake of breath that made the pod lights flare. Kai was instantly on his feet, his hand pressing gently against the soft membrane that separated her from the world. "It's me," he said. "You're safe. You're home." She blinked slowly, and her glowing eyes found him. "Kai, the raiders." "Gone," he said. "Your people held the line. Your leadership held the settlement." She let out a small, shaky laugh. "I burned the lattice. Too hot. Too far. You saved lives," he said. "But you nearly ended yours. Don't do that to me again." Her eyes filled with guilt. "I couldn't let them breach the core. If they took the children. We'll find another way to protect them," Kai said, more firmly, "way that doesn't cost you everything." She looked at him a long moment. "You still think there's a life for me beyond this burden?" "I think," Kai said gently, "that you're more than the sum of what they made you. And more than just the Veronake. You're still human, Vera. Still my sister. And you need a life of your own." She didn't speak for a long time. Then, very softly, "What if I don't know how to be anything else? Then we figure it out. Together." Over the following days, the settlement began to rebuild. Vera, still weak, watched from balconies and restorative chambers as Kai stepped into a role no one had asked him to fill: mediator, strategist, counselor. He spoke to grieving families, organized rotating patrols, and worked alongside engineers to upgrade defensive barriers. Slowly, the hybrids began to regard him not just as the Veronake's brother, but as one of them. And every night, he sat beside Vera and told her stories. "Remember when you locked me out of the hydroponics bay back on the low station," he said one evening, smiling as she drifted in and out of sleep. She chuckled weakly. "You tried to bribe me with dehydrated strawberries. And you made me eat all of them before unlocking the door. You deserved it," she murmured. In the quiet moments, something delicate began to mend between them. Not just the bond of blood, but the fragile threads of understanding, two souls who had walked wildly divergent paths now trying to learn each other's rhythm again. One evening, as she sat beside him beneath a canopy of bioluminescent flora, she whispered, "I don't know what the council will say when they learn about us." "About me. They'll be afraid," Kai said honestly. "But fear isn't truth. I'll stand for you. And so will others. They'll see me as a weapon. Then we show them your heart." She turned to him. "What if I fail?" He didn't hesitate. "Then we fail together. But I won't let you fall alone. Not ever again." When the message from the Galactic Council arrived, a glowing glyph encoded in 12 rotating languages, Kai stood beside Vera as she opened it. It was a summons, cloaked in diplomacy, wrapped in menace. They had been found. And the galaxy was about to ask questions Vera wasn't sure she had answers for. The tribunal chamber orbiting Galaxis Prime was shaped like an enormous shell, layered in spirals of glass and alloy. From its upper tiers, you could see the curvature of the planet, endless clouds shifting in hues of amethyst and gold. But neither Kai Thorn nor Veronake of the hybrid enclave, were there to admire the view. Kai wore the ceremonial dress of a human captain, though his insignia had been stripped of rank in protest of his presence. Vera wore no uniform. Instead, she arrived in the ceremonial weave of her people, her luminous skin unshrouded, her hair braided with filaments of quantum thread that pulsed gently with her breath. She looked every inch the myth they'd whispered about, more than human, less than alien, something new. The council sat in a ring of 12, each representative flanked by aides and armed with data glyphs, translators, and political armor sharpened over generations. Veronake of Zirion 7, spoke the Kalenian judge, a creature of shifting translucence and perpetual disapproval. "You stand before this tribunal accused not of crime, but of anomaly. Your very existence raises threats, philosophical and strategic. How do you plead?" Vera stepped forward. Her voice, even without amplification, filled the room. "I plead to nothing. I am no accident of science, no weapon designed in shadow. I was a child lost in a war, saved by those you would call alien, and transformed not by design, but by necessity. I am the result of two worlds refusing to abandon me." Murmurs flared among the council. A Saurian representative hissed, "You destabilize interspecies accords. Your enhancements violate every boundary of human limitation." "Perhaps," she said, "because those boundaries were never meant to hold." Another counselor interjected. "And what would you have us do? Sanction hybridization? Rewrite galactic law because one girl grew into a goddess?" "No," Vera said. "But recognize us. The hybrids of Zirion 7 are not mistakes. We are bridges. We are the future. And we offer peace, not as an ideology, but as proof that coexistence can produce something beautiful." Kai stepped forward now. He wasn't supposed to speak. But he did. "You look at her and see a threat because she doesn't fit your idea of what a person should be. But I've fought beside her. Bled beside her. Watched her save lives at the cost of her own. She is not a weapon. She is hope, something this council sorely lacks." A silence followed. The oldest member, a half-blind Elorian matriarch, leaned forward. Her voice, dry as parchment, echoed through the shell. "And if we deny you?" Vera looked not at them, but at Kai. "Then we continue," she said. "With or without your blessing. Because the future will come either way. We only offer to build it with you." They returned to Zirion 7 weeks later. No verdict had been given. The council remained silent. But silence, Vera knew, was not condemnation. Not yet. In the time that followed, the hybrids expanded their reach. Scientists from neutral worlds began to visit, cautiously. Trade routes opened, unofficial but functional. Messages flowed from hidden transmitters to exiled researchers and rogue peacekeepers. And Vera became something more than Veronake. She became a symbol. Kai remained by her side. Not because she needed a protector, but because she needed a witness. Someone who remembered the lullabies. Someone who reminded her she was still human. One night, beneath the shifting light of Xerion's twin moons, they stood at the edge of the crystalline lake. The war was behind them. The tribunal uncertain. The future unclear. I used to think, Vera said, that being chosen meant giving everything. Your name, your memories, even your heart. But maybe being chosen means choosing back. Choosing who stands beside you. Choosing what parts of yourself you refuse to give up. Kai smiled. And what do you choose now? She turned to him, glowing with quiet certainty. I choose to live. Not just survive. Not just lead. But to live. To love. To dream beyond the lattice. He reached out and took her hand, warm, humming, still familiar. Then that's the future we'll build. And under the light of distant stars, the sister he had lost 20 years ago, now something utterly new, stood beside him, no longer torn between two worlds. But holding them together. End of story.